So first of all, ladies, my flowers didn't arrive. So we're going to have a flower class today without any flowers. So hence, I've got my drawing board here. So what I will do is move that chair out of the way, move my pencils out of the way. So those of you who watched my Facebook Live this morning will realise that I was fretting a bit because my flowers hadn't arrived. And they normally arrive before I have breakfast. I reckon they normally here about 6:30 in the morning, and they get left either on my front porch or down our side path. And here we are, 3 hours sort of after my expected delivery time, 4 hours even, and my flowers haven't arrived. So I'm going to draw you a flower arrangement, so bear with me. But what I will do is the flowers will be arriving today, so I will film a video, just me talking to myself, and I will email that to you. As I won't do any special editing, I'll just film it as live, so that way I can get it out to you as quickly as possible. So a bit of conundrum, and when we have had that, haven't we, since the beginning of lockdown, that I was purposefully arranging flowers when I didn't have any flowers. So it's the first time that I've ever wanted to arrange flowers and then had nothing to arrange with. Now, if you're lucky enough, I don't know if you're flowering along with me, if you've ordered your box of flowers, or whether you've decided to pick things in your garden that you can substitute in, all well and good, and you can get arranging. And if you do decide to do that, you know, have a go. And I know not all of you are on Facebook, but do, you know, pop a photograph into the free Facebook group Flower Start World, and then we will we can compare notes. So I'm hoping I might actually bring you a little bit further forward so you can see my screen. I wasn't entirely sure what you could see in front of you. So all singing and dancing. It's like we're at a real conference, ladies. So I've got a piece of odd board and some computer paper propped up on our old chilled toddler's high chair here. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So in this imaginary world of having some flowers, I was going to use this vase here, which actually in readiness I have filled with water. So as I pick it up, it is slightly heavy. So this is a vase from IKEA, which cost me £10. I like the shape of it. It's like a modern classic, a modern version of an urn. So it's Joan, you were asking me this morning what kind of vase we needed, and I was very helpful by saying not too tall, not too small, and with a medium-sized opening. And of course, that can mean anything to anybody. But it's not a special vase. It's just the best vase to use for arranging flowers is the vase that you've got to hand. And this could be any shape. It could be straight-sided. It could be slightly fluted at the end. And the only thing I would say is you don't want your vase to be too big in terms of the mouth opening, because when you're arranging flowers, you don't want them flopping off to the side. So what I'm doing here is effectively an improved version, one step up from being a cut and plonk. So perhaps when you go to the supermarket and you know you have to recut your stems when you get home and clonk, you cut them at an angle, and you may well, as I do, practically every time I buy flowers from the supermarket, is I just put them in my vase and let them do their own thing. So we're going to do not a difficult arrangement, but it's going to be a cut and plonk version. And if your vase opening is too big, it just means your flowers are going to splay out. And of course, if it's too small, that they're just going to be all uptight like this, and you're not going to be able to see them at all. So I'm going to start off with my sheet of paper here, and hopefully with my coloured pens. I did ask my daughter for her darkest, fattest, chunkiest felt tips. So here goes. So I'm going to draw my vase. So I'm no artist, but you don't need to be an artist. I'm just schematically showing you what I was going to do. So this is my version of my vase. Oh, you can't see that, can you? We'll have to go black. I'm still not sure you can see that. I might need to bring you even closer in a minute. Oh. Oh, I think if I can bring you a tiny bit closer, you should be able to see. And just my laptop balancing on my pens there. Right then. There's a vase there. Imagine there's a vase. You know what a vase looks like. So this is a Freddie's Flowers pack, and I'm not particularly advertising Freddie's Flowers, it's just that I have a subscription service with them, and I find it quite handy for when I'm teaching my live classes, that I can sort of have a ready-made box of flowers and off I go, and I don't have to trawl around looking for individual flowers. So Freddie, when he does his flower arranging, there's always a little video and instructions of what to do, and he arranges his flowers the same way every single time. So I wanted just to use his principles but adapt them slightly. So if this box of flowers today, I should have had 5 gladioli in it. So gladioli are these really tall sword-shaped flowers, and in the box they would have been these green swords with a flash of colour on them. And over the course of the next few days, the flower heads will start to open as they work their way up the stem. And what I normally do with those is, as the flowers go over at the bottom, I pinch them off, and it encourages the flowers to open at the tips. So he always starts off with, he puts them in like this. Again, I'm conscious you can't see it. Hopefully on the video you'll see it. So it looks a bit like, I don't think you can see that very well. Imagine, play along with me, ladies, we'll get there in the end. So he's got 3 flower stems in, and he just plonks them in his vase like that. So just a wigwam of stems. So they cross over in the middle, a bit like that. And that's how he starts off, and that's how he starts off every arrangement. He gets something in that creates this wigwam effect. This is my interpretation of what a gladioli looks like. And then the next thing was, there were 2 lilies in the box. Now, two of anything is always really hard to arrange, because it just sort of makes a real symmetrical look in your vase. You'll end up actually, if you're not careful, looking like your flower arrangement's got 2 eyes or 2 sort of Mickey Mouse ears or 2 arms, depending on where you put your flowers. So 2s are really difficult when you're arranging them. And what I was going to show you how to do was, with my 2 lilies that would come in the box as standard length, I was going to cut one shorter and keep one a bit longer. So although there were 2, they would be at slightly different heights, and it wouldn't be so obvious that you were sort of creating these little headlights in your arrangement. So you could put those in, and they would have arrived quite tight in bud. The reason being, of course, because they were being delivered in a box that was only about this high. So all the flowers are quite tight, and it means that, number 1, they're easily packed, but number 2, you get to enjoy them at home, so they can become the 3D beauty that these oriental lilies will be. Now, if you have cats at home, cats and lilies don't get on to the point where it can make the cat really ill. And I know that Sue has said before that she has a special subscription that when it's a flower box with lilies in, she gets something else substituted in, although I think this time it didn't quite happen like that. So you need, as the flowers mature, I would always take out the pollen. So I normally get a bit of kitchen towel, and imagine that's the pollen developing. So it comes out, first of all, looking like little stems of the brown velvet. And as it dries out and matures, it becomes orange. And then eventually, if you knock the flower head, it shatters all over the place. So I would get a bit of kitchen towel, like my little cloth here. And what I do is kitchen towel in my hand, put it over the pollen, and I just pull. So all the dirt comes off in my kitchen towel, but the stamens inside are still left with that gentle profile on them. I don't ever cut them, because you end up with sort of truncated edge to them. And if you don't mind your fingers getting dirty, you can go in and do that with your fingers, although it does look like you've got nicotine stains on your fingers afterwards. And if by any chance you do get anything on your clothes, a piece of sellotape bound around your fingers with the sticky side out, and you can pat the pollen off. And if you get any pollen on your lilies themselves, a pipe cleaner, and you sort of do a little light dusting with a pipe cleaner. And if you do have pollen problems, is to act on it straight away. Don't rub it in, don't wash it in, don't leave it, because it sort of sets a little bit, so you do need to act immediately. What I'll do afterwards is I'll take a photograph of this so you can see what I'm doing. So I then come in with my lilies, and just schematically, I would draw a big lily here, perhaps having one down low, and then because there were 2, having them perhaps slightly higher up, like that. And that's a good way of distributing your flowers and not getting them, as I say, there's sort of two headlights in the end. And then they've got these beautiful buds that will open up in time. And what you'll need to do is keep an eye on your lilies, because as they mature, they do open out, but eventually they become quite papery and the petals get quite see-through. So at that stage, I would cut them off, throw them away, recut the stems, and then let the next bud sort of do its thing. So it's quite a nice way. Both of those flowers, the gladioli and the lilies, have a sort of a transition period over time. They change over time. It's not like a rose, which arrives looking like a rose, and a gerbera arrives looking like a gerbera. It's got a change to it. So you see it from bud to part open to 3/4 open, fully open, and then you get the sort of the death cycle at the other end. And eventually, if you didn't do anything, you'd just be left with the one stick of the last bit of the stamen standing out and a bit of a floral petal mess on the floor. So once you've got those bits of your flowers in, we've then got left with 2 pieces of ruscus, and it was going to be a soft ruscus that came in the box, and it's quite long. It's probably about finger to arm length, and it's quite small leaves on it, and it's got this lovely arching quality. So compared to the lilies and the gladioli, it's quite soft. Oh, thank you, Joan. You're saying yes. If you have me big on your screen, that you can see it a bit more. I am conscious that it is quite faded, though. You can vaguely see. So needs maths, trial and error. We'll perhaps have to work on plan C next time. So Freddie said with his bits of greenery, he just put them in, one over here and one over there, which is quite nice because it takes in that natural arching. And quite often I talk about with your vases that you need to think about your vase and your flowers as one entity, that you don't have your vase down here and then your flowers out here. They need to sort of meld together. And this is one way you can do that with your greenery. If it does naturally arch, you work with the arch and have that trailing over the edge. Now, if for any reason you decide that your piece of greenery is just too long, you don't want to cut off the fine end where it tapers into nothing. You want to cut it off from the stubby end at the bottom. So what you might need to do is shorten your stem, but then peel off some of the side shoots. So I can see that Swazi's joining us, and my flowers didn't arrive, just for anyone who's joining late. So we've gone on to plan B, which is my drawing, and I'm conscious that it's not massively clear for you, but I will send a photograph with the notes afterwards. And when the flowers actually arrive, I will film a video as if we were in class again. So you will get something for the time you're spending with me. So thank you for that. So that would be the piece of greenery. Now, if you wanted, if you had to, if the size of your vase necessitated that you need a shorter bit of greenery, so imagine you've got this lovely arching bit. You want the arching bit to stay, the feathery bit at the end to stay, and you want to cut it about here. And then you'll end up with a funny bit of greenery. It's got a straight stem, and then it's got very truncated. So you might want to, instead of getting rid of that, to put it back in your vase, right in the middle, and it will sort of fill out the heart of your vase, and that will help support the other flowers. So as I say, it's difficult with 2 bits, and especially if you have got long trailing bits, but you can cut them down to size. And then once you've got the a quantity of flowers in, you can then do the showing off bit, really, that whereas the first lot of flowers you put in slide around a little bit, that when you come to put your final flowers in, so there's 2 more gladioli to come, pretty much you can get them to stand up straight in the vase. Now the gladioli will have all have been a standard length, and again I would suggest that when you're working with 2 flowers, in order that it doesn't then, if you put 2 flowers in the middle that are the same height, it sort of squares off the top of your arrangement. So we're trying to create this lovely flowing, you know, romantic looking flower arrangement, and if you come in and effectively go boom and draw a line through the middle, you've spoilt all that harmony and creativity. So again, I would cut one of the gladioli slightly shorter than the other in order that it had more of an up and down. So you can imagine your eyes sort of going on a sort of little roller coaster through your arrangement, instead of going roller coaster, ooh, flat line, roller coaster, roller coaster. So you would perhaps come in with your third and fourth gladioli slightly shorter. And if you felt your first three gladioli, again, were a bit too stiff when you put that wig back, stiff in the sense of too static, they are stiff and straight flowers, you could adjust the length of all of them to make sure that none of your gladioli were exactly the same size. Keep their length, because that's the joy of the gladiola, they are a longer flower, but just vary it. So it may be that, you know, you take, when you recut the stems, you take a centimetre off one, 2 centimetres off the other, 3 centimetres, 4 centimetres, 5 centimetres, and that could be enough, just so you've got a bit of variation in height as you go along. So then we've got the alliums at the end. So the alliums that were going to be were called, I don't know if they're actually called bullet alliums, but that was what the Freddy's Flowers people were calling them, the small alliums. So it's just on a really fine stick with an oval, like a little egg on the top. And they do open up slightly, and like all these flowers, the lilies open up, the alliums will minutely open up, you'll barely perceive what the change is, and the gladioli. And I quite like them, most of the flowers, when they're quite tight, especially the alliums. I think they get a tiny bit too shaggy. And I think you'll find that once the lilies open, everything becomes a little bit messier, because of course you might have a lily stem with 5 buds on it. And it's nice when the first buds open and you've got that gradation all the way through. But when you've got 3 buds, 3 of the flowers open, they can look too busy because they all fill out a space. And sometimes I go back in and I cut one of the flowers off, so just sort of give it a bit more light and airiness. So I would then come in with my alliums, and again I would make sure they're all different lengths, because you don't want to put them in your arrangement and when you look at them you just see 5, again a row of 5 alliums, because you're trying to create this, you know, rhythm and flow through your vase. And if you've got that line through the top, it's not going to, you know, it's going to be you know, like a sort of discordant element. It's going to be jarring to your eye. So you want to have some up, some down, some perhaps tucked around the side of the vase. So a little bit of sprinkle really. So I'm going to go 1 quite low, 2, 3, 4 and 5 over the corner here. So that is then all the flowers used up. And you would need to make sure, especially in this hot weather, it's really, really hot today. In my vase, I've got water in probably up to the shoulders of my vase. As I've put the flowers in, I've made sure, and actually the nature of the flowers we've got, you want the clean stem to go in. So that's the stem without any leaves on it, because anything that's fleshy, leaves, side shoots, flower heads that sit in the water will start to rot off. And then the bacteria will speed up the decline of your flowers. And that's the thing where if you've left your flower water for a while, it goes a bit smelly is an understatement. It goes cloudy, dirty, and smells like old pond water. And that is why you need to be refreshing your vase every few days. So my flowers, in theory, arrived today on Friday. You know, after the weekend, I would probably then lift all the flowers out of my vase, put them to one side, tip away the water, clean out my vase with I've got a bottle brush for doing that, put in fresh water, put in flower food, and I didn't mention the flower food before, but flower food will help your flowers last longer, and then recut the stems. And you can either put all your flowers back in slightly shorter, or you can rearrange them a different way and reinvent them. So having flowers is a bit like having a work of art in your home. And unlike a work of art that always stays as that picture, that you can change it over time. And the beauty of flowers at home is eventually they do die. And then you've got a reason to buy another bunch of flowers. And you can change them to match your decor. You can change them according to the season of the year. So hopefully there'll be some flowers coming into the shop soon, and it's not something you'd expect to find in the winter, embracing the height of summer. So gladiola is a British grown flower, and demarks the fact we are now in the height of summer. The only other thing I will say as well is when you're arranging your vase is to think about where you're going to display your flowers. So there's no point in you putting all your good flowers around the back of your vase if you're going to have it against a wall. So if you have, if you display your flowers normally on, I don't know, a sideboard, something like that, where you've got the wall at the back, I would just adjust the placement of your flowers. So for instance, the big lily that you had wasn't at the back. You've paid the money for your flowers, so to make sure that they get seen from the front. But you want to make sure also that by putting everything so it's front facing, that the vase isn't becoming unstable, it's sort of being front loaded and going to fall off. And also I wouldn't always, again we're talking about those sort of headlight looks again, some of the flowers I would put in, you want to see some face on, but others I would just turn to the side a bit so you get a side glimpse. It's almost like, you don't want everything on show at once. You want to have your eye travel through the arrangement, and you want some flowers, perhaps some of them, to be a side view, a 3/4 view, a quarter view, a hint of, and you want to create some depth as well. So it's almost like you want to layer up your arrangement. So if that was the front underneath me here, I'd have a nice big flower here, and then there'd be another layer, and I might have one off to the side, and then probably more of the greenery at the back. So it's like a layer cake. If you look down on your vase, you can see if it's against a wall, it's mainly green at the back, it's got interest in the middle area, and it's got the biggest and the most showiest flower, quite showing off at the front. And when you add in your showiest flower, I like to make it so it's quite low over the edge of the vase. My personal bugbear, and it's entirely up to you what you do with your flowers, I don't like to see too many bare stems coming up. So if you get a nice, the lily here, huge lily at the edge, you can get your other flowers higher at the back because their stems are hidden by the front flower. Again, it's up to you what to do, and I wouldn't be too hidebound by what the rules are. It's about enjoying what you're doing. And of course, with these flowers at home, you'll put them in the room you use most, so perhaps the room you sit in of an evening, and you'll be able to admire them, you'll be critiquing them, you'll be jumping up every 2 minutes, just change this flower around. And that's the beauty of it. It's not a static arrangement. You're not committed to it. You can have another go another day, change the vase, and then get braver and braver about changing your stem length. So ladies, I'm going to take you all off mute now, and we can have a proper little chat. Perhaps this will turn into a bit of a coffee morning, you never know. But thank you for bearing with me, and hopefully, I bet those flowers will have arrived as